Good night, viewers, and welcome to this another program of Breaking Down the Issues. This program comes to you every Thursday night from 18:30 hours to 20 hours. The official host of this program is the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, MP and Shadow Minister of Natural Resources. Comrade Holder is also the chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. And so tonight we are going to be dealing with matters of national importance. But I want to first of all outline to you, the viewers, what is it we are going to focus on tonight. And then I'm going to bring in the host so that we can be able to have that interaction as it relates to the topic matters of national importance. My name is Dennis Jaikran, and I would be moderating this program tonight. So let us look at the areas in which we are going to focus on in this discourse. The first area we are going to look at is the Adriana Young demise in its different ways and different forms that would be explained by the Member of Parliament. Then we are going to look at the elections date, regional and national elections date, which is scheduled for the 1st of September 2025. But we are going to factor in on that date the press conference that was held on Tuesday by the three opposition nominated members of the Elections Commission and what they focused on and the areas of concern. We are going to touch on the National Assembly and the way in which the present speaker is showing his disrespect for the rule of law in the way he treats opposition members of parliament, except one who can be considered not part of the opposition, but on the other side of midnight. And then we want to look at the fourth area, the $3 billion more that would have been allocated or approved, so to speak, for the distribution of cash grants. So viewers, at this stage, I want to formally bring into the program for us to commence our discourse the Honorable Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Natural Resources, and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. Welcome, MP, to this another program of Breaking Down the Issues. And as I would have said early on, we are going to continue to look at matters of national importance, and I would have outlined 4 areas in which we are going to cover in this program tonight. So once again, welcome, and to our viewers, once again, we
thanks
welcome
for
you.
joining me and assisting in coordinating this program. I'm straight out of the car into this program, travel all the way from Georgetown. But
Yes.
nevertheless, I'm happy to be here so that we can discuss these important matters um, in a way that the ordinary people can understand what exactly is happening in our country.
And this is a clear indication that you are just from a series of meetings and engagements in Georgetown since yesterday, and you just came in and you made yourself available because you know the importance of representing people, representing the cause of people. And that is why you are presenting yourself for this program, despite the fact you just arrived in the region. So let us go, Member of Parliament. We said to our viewers early on that we are going to deal with 4 areas of concern. And for the past couple of weeks, this whole issue of the Adriana Young demise would not have only been something of national interest, but an international concern and interest. And there are a number of things that happen from the time or that day of her demise to today. And so, if you can take us through, maybe not in a chronological way, but in a way how you see it fit, so that the viewers can have an understanding of what is happening and up to today, what would have happened. Take us through, Member of Parliament.
All right, thanks, Mr. Jaikaran. You know, the death of Adriana Young has certainly shocked this nation, and it is something that a majority of Guyanese, I believe, would like to see justice for. Um, we've had cases like these in the past during the PPP reign. I can recall a young lady by the name of Reese. I can't remember her first name. I think that was a case in 1993.
Monica
Um,
Reese.
Monica
Monica
Reese,
Reese,
correct?
the Good
Um,
Friday
yes,
demise.
and it still haunts a lot of people who are familiar with it, and it is the cover up that would have really shook the nation, angered the nation, and that is why so many years after we are still it's more than 30 years after, 32 years or so after, um, a lot of persons are still clamoring for justice even in that matter. So you can understand the situation, or the feeling rather, of the citizens in this current matter, where young Adriana, only 11 years old, suddenly disappeared from a swimming pool during an outing in broad daylight, as people would normally say in Guyana. In broad daylight, she disappeared from the pool. It was evident that she was not there for many, many hours, and then reappeared back in that pool the next day, mysteriously, somewhat submerged. I don't want to say floating, but submerged. Um, Body still very much intact, not swollen, not swelled in any way, but just submerged there, and lots of other activities associated with that raised, caused public alarm and caused suspicion with respect to the police covering up the issue, suspicion with respect to the role of the government, uh, at least being complicit or seem to be complicit, um, in terms of the delivery of justice and all the activities of those who are supposed to work towards ensuring that justice is served in this matter. I recently spoke with the mother of Adriana Young. I visited the home quietly, without cameras, without any publicity, just to express in a quiet moment my sincere condolences. She's a relative of mine, but she's not familiar personally with me, but she is a very close relative of mine. Her father and my father are first cousins, so she's immediate family. To me, Adriana is a third, fourth generation cousin of mine. So I visited there, and again, I was stunned by the information which she shared with me, her own recollection of the activities. And there were some particular points that she said to me, and I'm hoping that I'm allowed to say it publicly. I believe she herself would have said, and others would have said certain things publicly, and so I'd want to share it with the public. She said when the child went missing around um, 2 to 30 sometime in the afternoon after lunch, and after they would have noticed her missing, they started to search they searched the pool, obviously. Oh, I should say that she said, first of all, Adriana is a quiet child, well disciplined, not one to do something without permission. She wouldn't come home from school by herself without saying to her mother, I'm leaving, I'm coming. She wouldn't go on the road or go outside to play without asking permission. She would ask before taking food from the pot. This is a disciplined, quiet child. And so,
Mhm.
the general expectation is that if she's in the pool and she would leave to go to the washroom or any place else, the expectation is that she will say that to somebody that I'm leaving. And so it is not, somebody had to, in their opinion, she had to tell someone, or somebody had to coerce her. Somebody maybe, um, which she probably would be familiar with, to get her out of the pool, or maybe she was heading to the washroom and she had to say something to someone. But that being said, she was missing from the pool. The pool was checked, albeit you had persons in the pool there still participating, strangers, guests of the hotel there in the pool. And they would have raised an alarm with the hotel management, who they claim or who allegedly refused to um, close off the operation, especially with respect to the pool. And I found this very, very alarming because you have a young child, a little child that is missing, and the parents ask that you search the facility, you close off the pool so that um, you can be very clear about what is happening in the pool, the activities in the pool, if no one is in there. You don't want to make anyone uncomfortable because these are strangers. They would have paid their monies, and so you cannot just go and get into their business. And the hotel allegedly refused, or reportedly refused, to stop or halt the activities at the poolside or anywhere in the hotel until around 10 o'clock in the night. It's totally unbelievable. From 2 to 30 until 10 o'clock in the night, persons were still in the pool having a good time while this child was missing. And no fault of those persons, because they might not be aware of this situation. They would not have been aware of all the information surrounding her disappearance. And so they were there, and this child was missing from the pool. The parents would have begged them to clear that pool, or at that time even drain the pool. When you're in these under these distress, sometimes you come up with all sorts of remedy, all sorts of solution, which might not be the best in some instances. uh, Draining the pool at that time But I understand the the interest of the family, the interest of the parents was to get their child wherever that child was. And so the hotel refused to do that until you had this big gathering and persons began to challenge the hotel owners, and the police got involved. The next thing the family said to me is that the police seemed to be protecting the the hotel rather than engage them and, for example, ask them how they can assist in this process of locating this child. They seem more concerned about protecting the the um, the hotel, the facility there, and whoever owns it and whoever was running it. And so that was another observation. And then we come to we should not come to the discovery of the body as yet. They were constantly agitating for the police to bring sniffer dogs in. Constantly, and the police seemed to be ignoring that request. Although sniffer dogs were available, and I'm told they were available in the very region, not very far away. And so the family kept on pressing for the sniffer dogs. Up until the next morning, many searches were made. You had search party involving the family and other neighbors and friends and even strangers searching the pool, conducting other searches, and um, she was not discovered. And then you had the infamous discussion with the commander, involving the commander, asking them to go home, moving them away from close to the pool, close to the hotel, moving them away from there, and engaging them in discussions which suggest that they should go home. The child was seen in some video leaving with some vehicle, but they stood their ground, and eventually, coincidentally, mysteriously, while that was going on, and even as they insisted that they now had some clothes for Adriana, they had clothes that she would have worn so that the sniffer dogs can use that to smell to see if the child would have left, or that trail, that scent would have led to some room or some part of the facility. Even as that was going on, this child mysteriously appeared. And when she appeared, we know the condition, we know there were marks on her body. And I heard the aunt talk about it just this evening on Travis Chase, that there were mysterious marks, or there are mysterious marks on the body, similar in nature, on the hand, on the legs, and on the forehead. Mysterious marks there. They also observed, and I heard the aunt said it as well, the child, after the father dove into that pool and got his daughter out, and they covered her face was covered with, I think, his jersey or something for a moment. And then when the mother and the aunt raised that jersey, it was clear to them, and very clear in their minds, that she had lots of cotton wool in her nostrils. The mother said to me that she cannot be fooled by it. She knows what is cotton wool, and she saw cotton wool in the nostrils. And so those were some of the observations. Another thing that they said to me is that one of the officers, not the one, the infamous, with the infamous wet jeans, not that one, not that wet jeans officer, the other officer working with that was seen in videos, etc., with him. They assigned that officer, and I can't remember his name. They moved to assign that officer to be the lead officer, at least at that time, on the investigation. And they said they vehemently objected to that. because the conduct of these officers warranted some level of suspicion, and so they were not comfortable, or they were uncomfortable with with the those officers being in charge of any investigation, um, or any aspect of the investigation with respect to this, with respect to Adriana Young. And so those were some of the things that the family said to me. I hope that I've not breached any measure of confidence, but it is being said constantly by the family in the public domain. The mother seemed very convinced, very strong, um, in her conviction that this was a murder. They're not disputing they're not disputing the report, and we will get to that. I will speak on that shortly. The post-mortem, um, saying that the child had drowned. Nobody is disputing that. What they want to know is how the manner of death, what time she died, where did she die? Because clearly, for the family, they said to me over and over, they searched this pool, they're confident many times over that she was not in this pool. And the circumstances under which she appeared in the pool the next morning, less than 24 hours after, um, in a slumped position, submersed position, gives reason for the suspicion that there was foul play. Backed by the marks, backed by all the events, the attempted cover, in their view, of this investigation. There are questions as to why is it that the three pathologists that conducted the postmortem, why they were not allowed to speak and answer questions, answer tough questions. Why is it that the pool was drained after the fact? Why is it that the police had no formal press conference to answer tough questions? Why is it that the infamous video to which the commander alluded to which the vice president alluded to, has not been made public? Why is it that the results of the postmortem was itself has not been released to the public, but rather you have the police version of the postmortem? What the police think, their interpretation, their quotation, quoting whatever the doctors, the pathologists would have purportedly said. Now, I just recall another thing that the family said to me. After this body went to the parlor, after the body was at the parlor, they were told that they can't open back the body is sealed and placed in this refrigerator, as is the normal practice. And it was said to them that because they were requested again to have another look. This thing is so unbelievable. And they were requested again to have a look. And they were told, rightfully, I think, that rightfully in terms of procedure, complying with the procedure, that you can't open, they wouldn't be able to open it until a post-mortem. It was time the authorities came to do the post-mortem. They had to secure the body. So you have a seal that would seal that refrigerator. But astonishing, when they went back, I think it's the next morning, they were told that the pathologist, famous pathologist, um, Nihal, what's his name? Um, it's a government
Dr.
pathologist,
Nihal Singh.
Nihal Singh, right? He would have allegedly seen the body or was allowed to. So they're confused as to what arrangement really is there. Was there two parallel arrangements? There was already an arrangement that these persons were coming. Though the family, these were not persons recommended by the family. And that's something that the family said to me, that they were not in agreement for these persons who they chose, but some manipulation took place. And the government arrived at the point that they pushed for these persons to come in. And so they were surprised again, um, with that, and with the fact that the government pathologist was involved in at least viewing the body. So that seal was clearly removed. Only God knows if there were others, or how many others would have been able to have access to that body in that period. I mean, I mean, maybe no other person would have done anything. Maybe the good pathologist, the good doctor, visited out of his own concern. But look, the point is that it was not consistent with the process that the government would have embarked on, the process known to the public, the process known at that time to the family. And so it gives rise to questions, it gives rise to suspicion. And so we're familiar with all that took place after. The president gave his version of what transpired. He did a press statement. I really don't want to call it a press conference, because he could not possibly answer the tough questions, the technical questions. You had to had the pathologists who were involved in that process. Notwithstanding, I think he had Dr. Frank Anthony. Frank is a politician, a part of the cabinet, a part of the government process, a part of that structure which has the police as well in it. The organization for which the public has serious doubt with respect to this matter and many other such matters. And so the fitting thing to do, the common sense thing to do, was to have those persons there. If I were the president and I had nothing to hide, I wanted no involvement in this. I didn't want the public to have any suspicion of my government being complicit. Then I would have done two things. I would have ordered those, well, asked, because they were foreigners, those or having the terms of reference, um, and involve others in the composing the terms of reference, and having there that they must do a press conference. Simply ask them to do a press conference in which you can explain to the general public what transpired, how did you come to these conclusions, and so the public would have been a little more comfortable if they could have answered certain questions. If I were the president and I had nothing to hide, no involvement, I didn't I if I didn't want my party or my government to be accused of anything, I would have also commanded, instructed the commissioner of police to have his team, the commissioner, the the um the crime chief, This is me personally, and the commander there to answer the tough questions, because they have to account as well for their own actions. They have to account for this video that they claim that they had, which we are still not allowed to see. They have to account for officers not wearing their body cameras, taking off their body cameras, and we have video evidence of that. Nobody was disciplined for that. They have to account for one of their officers seen with wet jeans at the time of the reappearance of the body in the pool. They have to account for the process that they took. They have to explain to the public why they did not secure the building, use the sniffer dogs, interview every single person that was in that building, whether staff, whether guests. They have to account. That is how you operate when you have a government that is accountable to the people, a government that is concerned with following the rule of law, ensuring that the rule of law prevails, ensures that there is transparency and accountability in every aspect of governance, and especially in terms of the operations of the police force. So that is where we are there. I see someone name the officer. Um, our guests are paying attention. The public is well in tune, and it is only the government who believes that people are fools. People cannot see through this thing that there isn't a clear attempt to solve this issue, to bring clarity to what really transpired. That is the public's perception. And we have to hold keep the government feet to the fire for their actions and their inaction in this matter. Now, as it is now, currently, I want to deal with the current situation. The body, after much delay, permission was granted for the body to be flown. I believe that there was no grounds to continue to deny the family the right to carry this body overseas for an independent post-mortem. And so eventually, the authorities were forced to grant it. The body flew out, I think it was Monday, and they're currently in Georgia, in the state of Georgia. I believe it's somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia. I can't remember the name of the hospital itself, but it is in Atlanta, Georgia. And as we speak, they are currently conducting that post-mortem. We don't know what the results are or would be. And I think Georgia time is a little earlier than us, a few hours, 2-3 hours earlier than us. So the last time I checked, I saw the family speaking to the issue. They said that the post-mortem is currently being done. The body was on the table around 2:30 Georgia time, ready to be examined. The aunt spoke. I didn't get to see the father speaking. He was very emotional. You could understandably so. And the aunt made some salient points. What she said is that the entire process seemed to be a corrupt one. Notably, she said that the president had said that he would leave no stone unturned and no he would spare, he would spare, or he would provide rather any and every resource to get down to the truth. But what we saw from the president after the first post-mortem seemed to be an action which indicates that he, how do I put it, an action from him which suggests that he wanted the situation to, the case to be closed immediately, and he was channeling that out, that this thing is conclusive. He even went to the point of saying that there was no forced drowning, which we later understood or got to understand that the post-mortem report never said that. Today, and you see, we gotta look at the chronology. We gotta look at the timing of some of these activities. Today, as the post-mortem is being done, the police comes out to say they have a final report. They have a final report that coincides, and to my mind is put out at this particular point to overshadow anything that comes out of that new post-mortem that is being done. That is how I would see it. There's no other explanation, because you would have kept it all along. You're given a preliminary, and I have not seen the actual report. You're now saying, this is just the police PR department saying to us that the final report concludes that it's drowning. It comes at a time to overshadow anything that might contradict what they're saying here in Guyana. And so that is why the family has reason to be suspicious. That is why the public has reason to be suspicious of the police and suspicious of the government of the day, who has control, and who has been overwhelmingly controlling, dictating to the police. Another point the aunt raised today, and the family did say to me, that they want closure. They want closure. But they don't want this thing to happen to anybody else. They believe that this issue, as sad as it is, it presents an opportunity in this country to ensure that we change course with respect to justice and how we deal with these types of matters. And so they want to see it to the end, wherever it goes. But they want a process that is credible. They want a process that they can be confident in, whatever results emerge from that process. And so their preference is for a reputable organization that has the investigative capacity, and that is independent of the government of Guyana. Because what they saw was a Canadian hired by the government. And they're not disputing, and we're not disputing, nobody's disputing his skill. Although I saw Dr. Todd and others question certain aspects. But that aside, that apart, this was a guy that is on the government's payroll. This was somebody who, and we can quote from Dr. Todd now, who never interviewed the father who made first contact with the body after that alarm was raised that she was in the pool. Certain persons were not interviewed by this fellow, and he's on the government payroll. We're not clear as to what is the terms of reference of his investigation. We saw the RRS come in before, and they simply had a look at the police file in similar fashion and said, well, the police are competent to investigate that other matter. And I'm deviating a little just to show how this government and how the police force has operated in the past. They would have refused in the past the help. You remember the Argentines wanted to help with the Henry boys, and they were denied. They were denied access. Now the family, I'm juxtaposing that because the family wants a reputable, independent organization. And they have suggested the FBI, Scotland Yard, or even the Canadian Mountain Branch. They have a good reputation as well. But it's organization, not a retired officer. Now, it is alarming. It is alarming that the president, who said that he will spare no resource, he make all the resources available, he will leave no stone unturned, he will do everything in his power to ensure that we get to the bottom of it. The family is requesting the FBI. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this matter. Whether you want to say whatever you want to say about it, there is controversy. And so to clarify and to clear up and to bring the truth forward and to bring this thing to an end, to get closure, you can simply bring the FBI, to which the ambassador, the American ambassador, the embassy, has already expressed their willingness to provide that assistance. And they said in no uncertain terms that all that has to happen, all that is required, is a request by the government of Guyana. This is where I have no trust for Irfan Ali. They do a lot of PR. They try to put him as somebody who is honorable and up, stand up, straight up guy. But when you examine these issues, when you read the fine print into these issues, you will tend to think the opposite of Irfan Ali and his government. Because here is a situation where you can clear your name. You can clear your government's name, your party's name. There are lots of fingers pointing at you, claiming corruption, claiming cover-up. And you have an opportunity to clear your name, and you are not taking any of the steps that are available to you to ensure that you have a clean slate and that justice is served. And so I found that quite interesting that offer remains on the table, is languishing there, like many others we have seen in the past. And here you have a government that I would say is refusing to go down the road of ensuring that the investigation is credible and that whatever the outcome of that investigation is one that is acceptable to, first and foremost, the family, and secondly, to the wider public. It is our hope. We don't know where this investigation, where the post-mortem rather, where the results will go. As we are speaking on this live, I am not aware that anything has been released. But that apart too, that apart, whatever this post-mortem says, there are still limitations. One, that's the first point I want to make. There are still limitations. There are still, for example, you want to do some chemical tests, toxicology. You want to you and this isn't even with the postmortem. These other parts of the investigation. You would have wanted to take samples of that water and test it against the water in the pool, that is, and check it against what is in the lungs, I would suspect. Because if she died from drowning and you're claiming that you want to know where she drowned, did she drown in the pool? Did she drown in a bathtub or in some bucket somewhere? Um, you want to do those things. So, notwithstanding whatever the postmortem says, and the investigation should remain open. The investigation into her death should remain open. There is much there to investigate, and obviously the government is looking to close it off. From the statement we've seen today from the police, they're basically saying to us that this is done, completed, finito, whatever you want to say in whatever language. It's done with. There needs to be a proper investigation there, and there also needs to be an investigation into the conduct of the police, because ever so often we see this kind of conduct in these types of matters where the persons involved in the issue or with respect to the issue are linked to the government. And so you see all types of maneuvering, all types of cover. We can go back to look at the similarities between this case, the conduct of the police, that is, in this case, and the conduct of the police in the Boston matter. We can look at the conduct of the police, the similarities, the conduct of the police in this Adriana matter, and their conduct in the recent shootings in Linden. All of them have a trademark. The PR, the public relations of the force, very early put out false statements and have to retract those statements when evidence is brought by the public or those involved. And so it is a common something common we observed over the 5 years that this PPP government would have been in office. And I must say on that point that we must question ourselves. Why is it that we have not seen anything of this nature? Period. From 2015 to 2020, there were no such occurrences from 2015 to 2020. But from 2020, the moment the PPP got into government, within a matter of 1 month, on the 5th, it was barely 30 days, 32 days or so, we saw the killing of the Henry cousins and the subsequent cover. I will call it the cover that we saw. We saw within the next year, and that was September 2020. September 2021, we saw Boston being killed by the SWAT team, and we saw the cover. There was never no investigation in terms of the conduct, into the conduct of the police. Who sent them? Who authorized this hit? Why they breached certain basic process? Why they went in with guns blazing for somebody that was not wanted? How is it that mysteriously a gun fired off? Every single year we can point. We had Peter Headley the following year, I believe, mysteriously shot by the police He was taken for some petty crime, placed in an unmarked vehicle in the front seat. The officer's gun went off mysteriously. No justice. We saw Bacchus. We saw the denials, Golden Grove. That gave rise to street protests on the East Coast. And the people used it in all form and fashion. We saw the denials there. And eventually, when the postmortem came out, he was shot in the back. He was running from the police. They admitted after challenging the court awarded some monies. Anil Nandalal said they would challenge it. And then they realized they're too close to an election and this thing is bringing a lot of heat. They decided to pay the family a measly $25 million for that life. We saw again, and nobody's being held accountable. That is not justice. We saw with Sergeant Vaughan in Bartica just 1 year ago, and I'm chronicling every single year of the PPP rule from 2020 all the way to 2025. We've seen these actions. A year ago, in March or April, a year ago, we saw Sergeant Vaughan being a part of a special unit put together to hunt down a prisoner escapee that they claim had committed a double murder. Again, mysteriously, a police officer's gun, a colleague, gun fires, kills Sergeant Vaughan, and nothing happens. Now, strange enough, this is ruled as an accident. But we didn't really hear from the police. But strangely, Vaughan, when the post-mortem was carried out, Sergeant Vaughan was shot 3 times. So I don't know how he was accidentally shot 3 times. But the important thing here is that nothing has been said. There is no justice. His jewelry, his belongings, everything is still in the possession of the police. His kids got no compensation. His wife and kids got no assistance, no help 1 year later. And we come now to 2025. We've done with 2020, 21, 22 right through. And we've missed some cases. I can't go through every one of them. We come to the Linden shooting, where they said some things that they give an impression of this young guy, the first guy that was shot, that he was doing certain things. And when the video came out, we saw that he was running from the police. He was unarmed. They came with plain clothes and with guns blazing. And he was running and he was trapped. There was nowhere for him to go. And he was shot by the police. And this was a video, fortunately for that video, that CCTV video that became public. So this all I am demonstrating here, that this is the trend of the police under the PPP. It is not the usual trend of the police, because that did not occur from 2015 to 2020. We saw lots of that all the way from 1992 to 2015 until we took power in either March or May, I believe it. May 11th of May, I believe, 2015. We saw nothing of that sort thereafter. So it says that you can conclude from that it has something to do with who is in charge of the police. It has something to do with the government of the day. And we have always been saying that this government is dictatorial. We have always said that they have used the police as a tool to activate or to use against political rivals and anybody who they want to silence. Look, just yesterday, and this is why we should we are suspicious. This is why the nation does not trust this government and the force, the current leadership of the force. Just they seem to be doing everything possible to silence anyone who speak on this Adriana matter, bring it to the public fore. Just yesterday, our regional chairman Adams, Deron Adams of Linden, he made a public post that his Facebook was hacked. And there was some post there saying, breaking news, Adriana was murdered. Lo and behold, the PPP Live in Guyana and other propaganda pages were carrying it and saying certain things. Immediately after that, he was contacted by the police. And today, he had to report again to the cybercrime unit. Now, I don't understand if it is, in my opinion, that Adriana was murdered. How on earth can you arrest me or detain me or ask me to report to the police station? I have not accused, and Deron has not accused anyone of anything. He has said that his device, his profile was hacked. But put that apart. If I say that I am suspicious, I believe that she was murdered, given the evidence in front of me, and I personally do, based on what has transpired there, unless something concludes, a proper, credible investigation concludes that she was not, then most Guyanese will conclude that there was foul play and that she was murdered. So I cannot fathom how is it that if you say the child was murdered, you believe that the child was murdered, how is it that constitutes terrorism? How is it? This is a blatant violation of people's constitutional rights. It is a blatant violation of free speech. It is a blatant misuse of the terrorism law that were implemented. And they like to say that, oh, it was the APNU AFC that brought these laws. Well, the APNU AFC never misused those laws. You never saw people being hauled in for terrorism here, there, and everywhere. There, you have to charge people under the requisite law. You cannot use terrorism to silence people. And that is what the PPP is doing. They are using the law, misusing the law and misusing the police force. And that is why the president, in my view, was so determined to keep Hikin, to first of all promote Hikin, as illegal as we believe it was and is, to promote him to lead that force. We believe that it is illegal. We believe that he's neither qualified nor certified to head the force. We believe that his appointment was illegal. But the president was so hell-bent on promoting this guy and a few others, and keeping him there, continues to keep him there even after he would have passed his retirement age. When you add up all of these things, you have one conclusion, that the government is complicit in this Adriana matter, and they use the police force as their tool, as a tool for repression, to silence people, silence the opponents, silence anyone who doesn't share their view. I know I've spoken a lot on
No,
this
no.
matter.
You,
We have little
you,
time, but
no,
I
right,
think I
right.
can leave it there.
No, but while we have little time in terms of it, the issues that you are bringing forth are very important for all of us. And therefore, it would have been good, the things that you said. But while we close on this particular matter of the Adriana Young demise, I want to make a few very quick passing comments. One is that any report that is not concluded and a part of it would have been presented, it cannot be a final report. It has to be a preliminary. And they know very well that a second autopsy would have been done. And therefore, whatever report would have been presented before the second autopsy must be a preliminary. So that is the first point. The second point, in any operation, I do not mean in medical terms operation, because they don't call it operational. They say procedures. There are three things you have. Before you commence what you have to do, if you want to be very accurate and professional and have the end results based on the satisfaction of all parties, you first of all must hold a pre-conference outline outlining all the things that you would do. That was not done. The next thing, that you carry out whatever functions you would have mentioned in the pre-conference. And then when you would have concluded that particular activity, you do what is known as a post-conference, bringing up to date, what were the things that you set out to do, that you said in your pre-conference. And they did not do that in the entire operation, and therefore you can only conclude that there is still searching and nothing that they did that can bring satisfaction to the family. And so I thought it fit that I should make that. But the last point I want to make is that Adriana was a grade 6 pupil, and she wrote the national grade 6 assessment. And at a particular time when those results are going to be out, Adriana would not be in person, but she would receive her results posthumously. And so we have to take care as a nation of concerned citizens of those results for her when they are out. So I want to thank you for bringing us up to date, MP, on the Adriana Young demise. Let us now turn to, we have a couple minutes more, at least 11 minutes more, to deal with
You might
four
have
other
to
issues.
prioritize. You might have to
So,
prioritize since we got 10 minutes.
and I want to believe that based on what we have here, that the one that we should go with for the next 10 minutes should be the election date that was set. So,
Yes,
yes,
let's go with
MP,
that.
good. So that date would have been announced sometime during the weekend, naming the 1st of September as the date for regional and national elections. On Tuesday of this week, which would have been 2 days ago, the opposition nominated commissioners of the Guyana Elections Commission held a press conference to address a number of issues. And as member of parliament and as chairman of the party, I think you have a vested interest not only in the date that was set and the situations surrounding that set date, but you are also interested in and can be able to focus on in this discourse on that press conference. So I give it to you, Chairman.
Yes. During the his independence remarks, President Ali would have announced the date for elections as the 1st of September. Now, as a political party, as a mass based political party that I'm from and the party which I chair, the PNCR, People's National Congress Reform, we're always prepared, we're always in election mode. You would know that we have a machinery that is constantly at work. And so we have always been preempting, preparing, looking at dates since last year. I believe our leader would have even said that publicly many times over, that we expect them to call elections early. And so we're always prepared. So I'm saying that to say that the announcement of that date being the 1st of September did not surprise us in no way. In fact, we were looking at some dates, I think the end of August. We were considering that, based on everything that we know, based on preparation for GCOM, etc. We were looking at that sometime early in the year. We were looking at various dates where um, this thing could be called. But of course, as the process moves on, the election, our ability to hold an election is dependent on a number of things. The Constitution speaks to when an election could be called and who is responsible for making the proclamation. And so, and I should say, as it is now, there isn't an official date for elections. That for there to be an official date, as I understand that date has to be done through a proclamation. Meaning it has to go in black and white. That proclamation has to be gazetted. Then it becomes law. It becomes law. So the president needs to have something on paper to say September 1st is the date. But as a matter of principle, if you say September 1st, we understand that a proclamation, an official proclamation, would follow, making it law. So we're assuming that. That being said, that being said, the next thing that election depends on is the organization which is responsible for the poll. You can't set a date and that organization, um, a date which wouldn't allow that organization to properly prepare and to carry out its activities, its preparation to ensure that you have those polls. And mind you, that organization, which is GCOM, has a mandate, a responsibility to ensure that elections are free, fair, and the results of those elections are credible. And so, to achieve that mandate, there are certain norms, there are certain things vested in law legislatively, and there are also certain practices that would have been agreed upon by commissioners on both sides and the chairperson, that these are the procedures with specific timelines that can best produce credible results as far as the organization goes. And further, I would say, I am no lawyer, but I want to say to the public that those practices have legal bearings as well. Because when we look at um, the matters that went to the courts, the election matters, it was established quite clearly that GCOM can do certain things, what certain things within their organization to ensure that they have free, fair, and credible elections. So they are allowed um, that they are given that leverage to put certain procedures in place as they see fit, ensuring to ensure that that mandate is achieved. And so you have certain timelines. You have timelines for nomination day. You have a timeline for the submission of your lists, your regional lists, and your geographical list to be correct, and your national top-up list. You have a timeline to submit the and you have a specification how many persons your nominees for that list, your supporters for that list, the persons who nominate those persons on that list. You have a timeline, and so the two sides over the years would have had to tweak the system to be efficient one, but to also allow certain timelines that would allow the parties to comfortably um, satisfy the requirements for them to contest, and certain other timelines for GCOM to carry out its functions. Reasonable timelines and timelines that are practical. And so GCOM had a meeting on the 20th of this month, which in which a preliminary or a draft work plan was set up, was presented to the commission for further deliberation, and that identified the 22nd as the earliest time, the 22nd of September, as the earliest time for free, fair, and credible elections to be conducted by GCOM. There were still a number of things on the table that were being discussed. Biometrics, the issue of persons who are on remand being allowed to vote, because there is this view that those persons, you will be violating their constitutional rights if you're not allowing them to vote. There are a number of other things that our commissioners would have explained, technical things that our commissioners would have explained. In terms of claims and objections, you have a certain timeline which you want to give the parties and the public a particular amount of time to make their objections, make their claims. Someone might say their name is not on the list, but they qualify. And so, but you want to give them a reasonable time. You don't know their situation, where they have to come from, what they have to do. You want to present reasonable time that they can make their claims and their objections. If you have objections to nominees, because we know how this goes, each side will present a list of persons who nominate these candidates that you have, and then you would find that Tom Jones is on the APNU list, but then you find that Tom Jones' name on the PPP list as well. There are remedies for that, and the GCOM process allows for certain appeal with respect to your name on the list or not on the list, where you have to appear in court. And we know how the courts go. The courts rule based on evidence presented, and so you must give sufficient time to present your evidence, to get up whatever you have to get up. this new time or this date, as announced by the president, now brings all those things into question. Obviously, obviously, you can't satisfy the norms of GCOM, the normal practice of the election agency. It obviously will affect it. It is not 1 day or 2 day. It is by 3 weeks. It is reduced by 3 weeks. So you have serious implications with respect to the credibility and the acceptability of the elections after the results would have been announced. If you go down this path, now we began to question how the president arrived at that point to make such an announcement. And we were told, which was confirmed by GCOM, I believe, yesterday, they made a release which said that the president consulted with the CEO. Well, that is okay. That is who is he expected to consult with. The problem is that the date provided or the period provided, there was no consultation with the commissioners. It is the commission who is supposed to approve this work plan. What we were told is that the chairperson for GCOM claimed that she consulted with the CEO and she made a decision. That is not how it works. It is not within the CEO's purview to pronounce on such matters, but to provide that information to the commission as a suggested work plan, because he's the person that actually runs the day-to-day operation. And so he would present a draft plan to the commission for approval. The chairman is not the commission. And so I believe the chairman is out of order to make such a proposal to the president. Further, I believe that there is collusion here. They know how to do these things. He will follow the process as he speak with the chairman, because who else will he speak with?
We have just lost the member of parliament. Um, we have so viewers, our member of parliament might have received some technical difficulties, and as such, we have lost him for a while. But because we would have come to the period allocated for us on this program, in the absence of us not having our host, I want viewers to say how grateful we were to you as you are listening to this program. And we want to say thanks. And next Thursday at the same time, MP, I lost you for a while and I was concluding the program because I already said to our viewers, because we are out of time as it relates to our allocated duration. And so now that you are back, I give you the opportunity to conclude, and then we conclude the program.
Yes, I know there are other programs coming in, but
Right.
I was saying that date now brings that into question. And I was saying about the CEO. Now, I think that there is collusion, because who else will he speak with? He has to speak with the chair. Retroactively now, a draft or a program is coming to the commission to say that they can satisfy the president's date. This is retroactively. That is not how it's supposed to work. If if perchance that would have allowed the norms of GCOM, the normal 1 week for certain activities and 5 days, 10 days, whatever, then it would be acceptable. But you cannot accept the CEO, the chairman making a unilateral decision. And it is, I see them disputing whether it's a unilateral decision. It is a unilateral decision in the context of the commission. Unilateral, you alone making it across the board. The decision is supposed to be made by a majority of or the entire commission, or by a majority at minimum. And if the chairman alone makes such a decision, then it is unilateral and it doesn't bode well for what is to come. I would term this is gerrymandering. This is mischief afoot. It means that at this stage you cannot trust anything in terms of GCOM. And this trust issue has been around for a long time, from since 2020. We have asked for an internal review of GCOM process. We know all the troubles that GCOM had and continues to have, and they refuse to do that. So over the years, um, they would have employed persons, including the CEO and DO, I'm told, who did not fit the full criteria for or qualify based on the criteria set out for the job. They would have employed a lawyer, and I'm telling you and letting the public know the antics of GCOM and why they cannot be trusted. They employed a lawyer who gave his independent views, who gave a view in court recently in a matter which he submitted in writing, to which they did not object, and he gave that very view in court, and they were dissatisfied with it, and they did not renew his contract. And so when you look at all these actions by GCOM, you could tell that there is corruption, you could tell that there is collusion, and you could tell that they are hell bent on preparing the conditions to rig an election, to rig the next election in favor of the People's Progressive Party. The chairperson has constantly, consistently voted on every matter for decision on the PPP side. The most reasonable of decisions, she votes with the PPP. And so we can only conclude that they are preparing this ground to rig this election. I saw them today say that they had this headline: Norton contradicts commissioners. Not true. Total propaganda. That I describe that as dotish reporting, deliberate dotish reporting by these PPP propaganda news agency. Norton clearly stated and constantly, consistently stated over the years that we are always prepared for an election. It doesn't matter which date, we are always in preparation mode. It doesn't take away from the fact that we are unhappy, we are not satisfied with, and we are railing against what we see as mischief being done at the level of the commission. And so we want to be very, very clear. We are prepared, but we are going to scrutinize this process with a fine teeth comb. We are going to do everything possible to ensure that they don't cheat in these elections and get away with it.